A slow breath escaped my lips, the quiet of the evening settling around me like a familiar shawl. 68 years, that's how long I'd been on this earth, and for the better part of 40 of those, Arthur had been right beside me. Now, a year after he'd passed, the silence in this house, our house, was a constant companion. It wasn't a bad companion, not really. It just was. I still found comfort in the familiar creak of the floorboards, the way the evening sun slanted through the living room window, casting long shadows on the worn rug we'd picked out together decades ago. But sometimes, especially on these long summer evenings, a different kind of quiet would creep in, a quiet that whispered of absence, of a hand no longer there to hold, of a warmth that had faded with time. Tonight was one of those nights. I was curled up in my favorite armchair, a well-loved paperback resting on my lap, though my gaze kept drifting towards the empty space on the opposite side of the room where Arthur used to sit. A half-empty glass of Chardonnay sat on the small table beside me, the condensation leaving a delicate ring on the polished wood. The air was warm, a gentle breeze occasionally rustling the leaves outside my window, carrying the faint scent of blooming roses from my garden. I was wearing my favorite robe, a soft, worn terry cloth that felt like a comforting hug over a simple cotton nightgown. It was the kind of outfit meant for solitude, for quiet contemplation. But even in the stillness, a restless energy stirred within me. It wasn't a frantic feeling, more like a gentle hum beneath my skin, a subtle longing for something more. I found myself thinking back to the days with Arthur, not just the big moments, but the small everyday touches. His hand on my back as he passed by, the brush of his leg against mine as we watched television, the warmth of his embrace before we drifted off to sleep. Those simple connections, once taken for granted, now felt like precious memories, their absence a palpable ache. Just as I was lost in thought, my phone vibrated softly on the coffee table, jolting me slightly. I sighed, reaching for it, half expecting a late-night news alert or a message from my daughter. But the name that flashed across the screen made my eyebrows raise in surprise. Lucas. Lucas was my neighbor, a kind, helpful young man in his mid-30s who lived a couple of houses down. He often helped me with things around the yard that Arthur used to handle, mowing the lawn, fixing a leaky faucet, that sort of thing. He was always polite and respectful, and I appreciated his thoughtfulness. His text read, "Hey Eleanor, Ethan and I are nearby. Would it be all right if we stopped by for a quick drink? We just finished helping Mrs. Henderson with her AC." Ethan was Lucas's friend, a few years younger, who sometimes helped out as well. I was surprised. It was nearly 9 o'clock. I wasn't really dressed for company, and I had been looking forward to a quiet evening with my book. My first instinct was to politely decline, to say I was already in bed or feeling tired, but before I could even type a reply, another message popped up from Lucas. "Come on, don't say no. We won't stay long, promise. Just wanted to say hi." He knew how to be casually persuasive, that boy. He had a friendly, easygoing charm that was hard to resist. I exhaled slowly, a small smile tugging at the corner of my lips. They were good boys, and it was nice of them to think of me. Maybe a quick drink wouldn't hurt. I typed back, "All right, boys, but just one drink, and don't expect me to make a fuss." As I quickly straightened the cushions on the sofa and put away my book, a strange feeling fluttered in my stomach. It wasn't nervousness exactly, more like a subtle shift in the atmosphere of the house, a sense of anticipation, perhaps. I couldn't quite put my finger on it. I wondered why I had agreed so readily, when just moments before I had been content with my solitude. But there was a small, curious part of me that was intrigued by their unexpected visit. 15 minutes later, a gentle knock echoed through the hallway. I took a final sip of my wine, smoothed down my robe, and headed to the door. When I opened it, Lucas stood there, a wide, friendly smile on his face. "Hey, Eleanor. Thanks for having us." He stepped aside, and I saw Ethan standing just behind him, offering a more reserved nod. "Come in, boys," I said, stepping back to allow them entrance. As Lucas walked past me, his eyes flickered down my body for a brief moment, a look that lingered just a fraction too long. It wasn't disrespectful, not exactly, but it was different from his usual polite demeanor. It made a faint blush rise on my cheeks, and I suddenly felt more aware of the thin fabric of my robe. Ethan's gaze, as he followed Lucas inside, was equally intense, though quieter, more assessing. Their presence in my living room felt different. They seemed a little too relaxed, settling onto the sofa, as if they were completely at home. It wasn't unwelcome, but there was a certain confidence in their movements that made me wonder if this was truly just a casual visit. "So, how is Mrs. Henderson?" I asked, trying to steer the conversation towards the reason they said they were in the neighborhood. "Oh, you know how it is with old AC units," Lucas chuckled, stretching his arm along the back of the sofa. "Always something, but we got it working for her." She was thrilled. Ethan nodded in agreement. "Yeah," she was about to melt. He leaned forward, his gaze meeting mine across the coffee table. "You doing all right with your AC, Eleanor?" "Oh, yes, thankfully," I replied. "Arthur always kept it in good shape." A brief pang of sadness hit me as I mentioned his name, but I quickly pushed it aside. "You look lovely, Eleanor," Lucas said suddenly, his eyes sweeping over me again. "That color really suits you," Ethan chimed in, his voice a little deeper. "Yeah, you always look amazing, Eleanor." The compliments felt different tonight. They carried a weight, an undertone that hadn't been there before. I felt a strange mix of flattery and unease. I went to the small bar cart in the corner to offer them a drink. "So, wine for you both?" "Sounds perfect," Lucas said. As I poured their wine, Ethan came over to take the bottle from me. His fingers brushed against mine as he took it, the contact lingering for a fleeting moment. Neither of us pulled away immediately. A small jolt, a spark of something unexpected, ran through me. We settled back in the living room, the conversation flowing easily enough, but the underlying tension remained palpable. Lucas leaned back on the sofa, one arm draped casually behind his head, his gaze never straying far from me. Ethan sat forward, his elbows resting on his knees, his attention equally focused. "So," Ethan began, a playful smirk on his lips, "why did you really say yes to us coming over so late, Eleanor?" I met his gaze over the rim of my wine glass, a small, knowing smile playing on my own lips. "Maybe I just enjoy the company of two handsome young men," I replied, not entirely joking. Lucas chuckled. "Well, we certainly enjoy yours." As I reached for the wine bottle to refill my glass, which was already half empty, Lucas's hand briefly rested on my thigh, just above the hem of my robe. It was a light, fleeting touch, but it sent a wave of heat through me, making my breath catch in my throat. My heart skipped a beat. I could have recoiled, pulled away, pretended it didn't happen, but I didn't. Instead, almost imperceptibly, I subtly shifted my legs, giving him just a fraction more access. The corner of his lips curled into a slow, knowing smile, and in that moment, I knew this evening was heading down a path I hadn't anticipated. Lucas's touch lingered on my thigh, a silent question hanging in the air between us. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the sudden stillness in the room. I met his gaze, and there was a heat in his eyes that mirrored the warmth spreading through me. Without a word, his hand slid a little higher, his fingers gently teasing the very edge of my robe. A shiver ran down my spine, a delicious tremor of anticipation. I leaned in almost imperceptibly, a silent invitation, and the air crackled with unspoken desire. Then he leaned closer, his breath warm against my ear, as he whispered, "You know we've both wanted this for a while, Eleanor." His words were a gentle confirmation of the unspoken tension that had been building between us for months. Those lingering glances, the extra help around the house, the way they always seemed to be around when I needed something. And then his lips were on mine, soft at first, a tentative exploration. I closed my eyes, the familiar scent of his aftershave mingling with the lingering aroma of wine. My own lips parted slightly, and the kiss deepened, becoming more certain, more demanding. It wasn't just a friendly peck. It was a kiss that spoke of longing, of a connection that had been simmering beneath the surface. Just as I was losing myself in the warmth of Lucas's kiss, I felt a shift beside me. Ethan moved closer, his presence suddenly more pronounced. A slow inhale escaped my lips as I felt his breath on the curve of my neck, a warm, tantalizing whisper against my skin. He pressed a soft kiss there, lingering for a moment, testing, and a fresh wave of shivers coursed through me. It was a different sensation, a different kind of heat, but equally intoxicating. Hands both familiar and new began to explore. Lucas's hand tightened on my thigh, while Ethan's hand gently found its way to my waist, his touch light yet firm. My fingers instinctively curled into the soft fabric of the sofa, gripping it tightly as my breath hitched. I leaned into them, drawn by the warmth of their bodies surrounding me, the intoxicating mix of their scents. There was an unspoken agreement in the air, a silent understanding that transcended words. Their eyes met mine, filled with a mixture of desire and something akin to reverence. I felt a sense of liberation, a shedding of the heavy cloak of widowhood that I had been wearing for so long. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, I felt truly desired, truly alive. Gently, almost reverently, Lucas pulled back from the kiss, his eyes searching mine. "Eleanor," he murmured, his voice husky, Would you like to move to the bedroom?" My heart pounded in my chest, but there was no hesitation. A small smile touched my lips. "Yes," I whispered, the word barely audible. With a gentle hand on my arm, Ethan helped me to my feet, while Lucas took my other hand. Together, they led me through the dimly lit hallway to my bedroom. The familiar space suddenly felt charged with a new energy, a palpable sense of anticipation. We sat on the edge of the bed, the silence thick with unspoken desires. Lucas reached out and gently took my hand, his thumb stroking my knuckles. Ethan sat on my other side, his gaze never leaving mine. Then slowly, deliberately, Lucas reached for the tie of my robe. My breath caught in my throat as he gently loosened it, and the soft fabric parted, revealing the silk nightgown underneath. Their eyes roamed over me, not with lust, but with a kind of appreciative admiration that made my skin tingle. Ethan reached out and gently brushed a stray strand of hair away from my face, his touch feather-light. Then Lucas leaned in and pressed a soft kiss to my collarbone, his lips lingering there for a moment, sending a wave of warmth through me. Slowly, with a shared understanding, they helped me out of my robe, letting it fall to the floor in a soft heap. I felt a moment of vulnerability, but their gentle gazes reassured me. Ethan then reached for the hem of my nightgown, his touch sending shivers down my spine as he slowly, deliberately began to lift it. The focus wasn't on explicit nudity, but on the sensation of their hands on my skin, the warmth of their bodies drawing closer, the anticipation building with each shared glance and gentle touch. Lucas leaned in and kissed my shoulder, while Ethan's hand gently caressed my leg. The air was filled with soft sighs and the quiet rustle of fabric. We settled onto the bed, the three of us close together, the warmth of their bodies radiating against mine. Their touches became more intimate, exploring and caressing, each movement filled with a mixture of tenderness and desire. Lucas's lips found mine again, and this time the kiss was deeper, more passionate, a silent expression of the connection we were forging. Ethan's hand gently cupped my face, his thumb stroking my cheek as he watched us. The narrative focused on the shared experience, the intertwining of limbs and breaths, the feeling of skin against skin. I felt a sense of awakening, a rediscovery of a part of myself that I thought had been lost forever. The intimacy was conveyed through the language of touch, of shared sensations, of the emotions that flowed between us in the dim light of the bedroom. There were soft moans, whispered words of pleasure, and the gentle rhythm of shared breaths, all painting a picture of intimacy without resorting to explicit descriptions. This was about connection, about shared desire, about the unexpected turn that this quiet summer evening had taken. The intensity slowly ebbed away, leaving a comfortable warmth in its wake. My breath still hitched occasionally, and my skin felt incredibly sensitive, alive to the slightest touch. I lay there, nestled between Lucas and Ethan, a sense of profound peace settling over me. The silence in the room was different now, no longer echoing with absence, but filled with a quiet intimacy, the soft sounds of our breathing mingling in the dim light. Gentle touches still lingered. Lucas's hand rested lightly on my hip, his thumb tracing slow, lazy circles. Ethan's fingers were intertwined with mine, a silent connection that felt both comforting and exhilarating. I closed my eyes, savoring the moment, the unexpected turn this evening had taken. It was something I never would have imagined. Yet here we were, the three of us, bound by an experience that felt both surreal and deeply personal. A soft smile touched my lips as I reflected on the events of the past few hours. It had been a long time since I had felt this way, desired, cherished, truly alive. The loneliness that had become such a familiar companion had receded, replaced by a warmth that radiated from the inside out. It was a surprising feeling, a reawakening of a part of me I thought had gone dormant with Arthur's passing. "You okay, Eleanor?" Lucas murmured softly, his breath warm against my ear. "Yes," I whispered back, my voice still a little shaky. "I'm more than okay." Ethan squeezed my hand gently. "We enjoyed ourselves very much," he said, his voice low and sincere. I turned my head slightly, meeting their gazes in the soft light filtering through the curtains. There was a genuine tenderness in their eyes, a respect that touched me deeply. I knew this was unconventional, perhaps even scandalous in some people's eyes, but in that moment, all I felt was a sense of connection, a shared experience that had brought us closer in a way I couldn't have predicted. The future was uncertain, of course. I didn't know what this meant for our relationship going forward. Would this be a one-time occurrence, a moment of shared intimacy that we would look back on, with a mixture of surprise and perhaps a little embarrassment? Or could it be the start of something new, something unexpected? The questions swirled in my mind, but for now I pushed them aside, content to simply enjoy the present moment. What I did know was that something had shifted within me. I felt a sense of empowerment, a reclaiming of my own desires and my own sensuality. I had taken a chance, stepped outside my comfort zone, and experienced something that had made me feel truly alive again. The weight of my widowhood felt a little lighter tonight, the future a little brighter. Lucas shifted closer, pressing a soft kiss to my shoulder. "We should probably let you get some rest," he murmured, though his hand remained on my hip. Ethan nodded in agreement, his eyes still holding mine. "We'll see you tomorrow, Eleanor," As they slowly got out of bed, a part of me wanted them to stay, to linger in this newfound intimacy, but I knew they were right. It was late, and we all needed time to process what had happened. After they had dressed and quietly let themselves out, I lay back in bed, the lingering warmth of their bodies still imprinted on the sheets beside me. I closed my eyes, a myriad of emotions swirling within me: surprise, contentment, a touch of nervousness about the future, but mostly a profound sense of aliveness. And now I turn to you, the ones listening to my story. Most people might raise an eyebrow, maybe even judge what happened tonight. But I have to ask you, honestly, if you were in my shoes, a woman who had been alone for a year, unexpectedly finding herself in this situation with two kind, attentive young men, would you have stopped it, or would you have let it unfold, maybe even taken it further? I'm genuinely curious to know your thoughts. Share your answers in the comments below. And before you go, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed the story, and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of my future tales. Click the notification bell too, so you'll be the first to know when a new story drops. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next one.